Welcome to Vanished Stories. Tonight's mystery takes us deep into the Mojave Desert, where Barbara Thomas, a 69-year-old woman, vanished in broad daylight, wearing nothing but a black bikini. What happened to her remains one of the desert's most chilling secrets. But before we begin, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, and your support helps us bring more stories to light. Now grab your coffee, settle in, and listen closely. You won't want to miss this one.
She vanished in broad daylight, wearing nothing but a black bikini deep within one of America's most unforgiving deserts. Her husband claimed she had merely walked ahead for a fleeting 5 minutes. 18 months later, what investigators unearthed just 30 meters away would transform this missing person case into something far more sinister. But the most shocking revelation wasn't where Barbara Thomas was found. It was what the relentless desert had, against all odds, preserved. How does a 69-year-old woman, clad only in a bikini, survive in 110-degree Fahrenheit heat? Or did she? Barbara Thomas adored the desert. At 69, she possessed the boundless energy of someone half her age. Every single weekend, she and her devoted husband, Bob, would meticulously pack their RV and venture deep into the heart of the Mojave Desert from their home in Bullhead City, Arizona. Barbara wasn't some naive tourist who had stumbled unwittingly into dangerous territory. She had hiked these very trails dozens of times. She intimately knew the unforgiving rocks, the winding paths, the elusive safe spots to rest. The desert was her cherished playground, never her adversary. Friends described her as utterly fearless, yet never foolish. She always carried water, always informed others of her precise route, and always returned laden with captivating stories and vivid photographs. The desert had never betrayed her trust, not once, until the fateful day of July 12, 2019. Friday morning dawned, clear and brutally hot, over the sprawling Mojave. By 10 a.m., the merciless temperature was already relentlessly climbing toward an oppressive 110 degrees Fahrenheit. Bob and Barbara parked their RV near Kellbaker Road, precisely as they had done countless times before. Their plan was elegantly simple, a 2-mile loop hike through utterly familiar territory. They had traversed this exact route just 6 months earlier. Barbara knew every imposing boulder, every subtle turn. She wore her usual distinctive desert attire, a black bikini, a vibrant red baseball cap, and sturdy tan hiking boots. Some found her choice of clothing odd, unconventional, but Barbara had her practical reasons. Less clothing, she reasoned, meant less heat. She wasn't attempting to make a fashion statement. She was merely striving to stay cool. Yet there was an unsettling difference about this particular trip, something that would later profoundly puzzle investigators. Barbara had inexplicably left her phone in the RV. For a woman who was never, ever without it, this was a stark anomaly, a peculiar oversight. But Bob, at the time, gave it little thought. They locked the RV, a mundane act, and began their walk. Neither of them knew, not then, that only one of them would ever return. The trail diverged near a sparse cluster of Joshua trees. Bob paused, captivated, to photograph the vast desert landscape that unfurled endlessly in every conceivable direction. Barbara, however, was eager to press onward, her usual enthusiasm palpable. "I'll meet you back at the RV," she called out. Her voice carried faintly on the dry air. Bob watched her walk ahead, her bright red cap bobbing rhythmically between the sun-baked rocks. She looked utterly confident,
entirely purposeful. This was Barbara, in her true element, at one with the formidable landscape she cherished. 5 minutes later, a mere blink of an eye in the vastness of the desert, Bob finished his photos and headed back to the RV. He fully expected to find Barbara patiently waiting for him, perhaps already settled in the sparse shade, leisurely drinking water. The RV was securely locked. Barbara was nowhere to be seen. He called her name, his voice echoing, then swallowed by the immense, indifferent desert. He walked the perimeter, his eyes frantically scanning behind every rock, desperately searching for that telltale flash of red from her cap. Nothing.
At precisely 11:47 a.m., a desperate Bob Thomas dialed 911. "My wife is missing in the desert." But investigators would later unearth a crucial, chilling gap in Bob's narrative, a gap that would haunt this perplexing case for 18 agonizing months. Within hours, the vast expanse of the Mojave Desert became a cacophony of sound, filled with the urgent thrum of helicopters. Search and rescue teams from 3 different counties converged, a desperate human tide on the desolate area east of Kelbacher Road. Canine units, ground teams, aerial units, every available resource was mobilized. Everyone involved acutely understood the dire stakes. In 110-degree heat, without any water, and clad only in a bikini, Barbara had, at most, perhaps 6 precious hours to live. That rapidly shrinking window of survival was already closing. The relentless search teams toiled through the brutal, unforgiving afternoon heat. They meticulously followed every faint trail, checked every hidden cave, painstakingly examined every shadow large enough to conceal a human form. The helicopters flew in precise grid patterns, their advanced thermal cameras tirelessly scanning the parched earth for any fleeting sign of life. By sunset on day 1, they had found absolutely nothing. No discernible footprints in the shifting sand, no telltale scraps of clothing snagged on the thorny cacti, no single irrefutable sign that Barbara Thomas had ever even been there. The highly trained dogs couldn't pick up her scent trail from the RV. It was as if she had simply, impossibly, vanished into thin air. Day 2 brought with it a fresh surge of searchers, more advanced equipment, and a flicker of renewed, fragile hope. But the desert, silent and unyielding, gave them nothing. Barbara's bewildered family lived thousands of miles away in Hong Kong. When the devastating news finally reached them, they grappled to comprehend how their experienced, meticulously careful Barbara could simply, inexplicably disappear. Her sister spoke to reporters by phone, her voice laced with anguish. Barbara wasn't someone who took foolish risks. She had hiked that area countless times. The very idea that she became disoriented in just 5 minutes makes absolutely no sense. Barbara's friends echoed these profound concerns. They painted a consistent picture of a woman who always, without fail, carried emergency supplies, who always meticulously planned for contingencies, who never, ever wandered off without first telling someone her exact destination. The troubling picture that gradually emerged was not that of an inexperienced hiker making a fatal mistake. This, they instinctively knew, was something else entirely. But if Barbara hadn't gotten lost, what, then, had truly happened to her?
10 days after Barbara's inexplicable disappearance, the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department made a startling announcement that sent shockwaves through the community. They were now actively investigating Bob Thomas as a suspect in his own wife's disappearance. Bob reluctantly agreed to take a polygraph test. The results, chillingly, showed deception. "Those tests are unreliable," Bob defiantly told investigators. "I have absolutely nothing to hide. I want to find my wife more than anyone could possibly imagine." Bob offered his own alternative theory. Barbara had been abducted while crossing the road back to their RV. Someone, he insisted, had snatched her during those crucial 5 minutes when they were separated. But investigators found significant, troubling holes in this theory.
The desolate desert road was utterly deserted that morning. No other vehicles had been spotted. There were no tire tracks suggesting a sudden, violent stop or a struggle. More troubling still, Bob's story continued to subtly shift, changing in small but undeniably significant ways. First, he claimed he was taking photos for 5 minutes. Then he conceded it might have been 10 minutes. Then he couldn't precisely recall where he was standing when he lost sight of Barbara. The case, tragically, went cold. But the desert, vast and indifferent, was still meticulously guarding its deadliest secret.
Bob returned to Bullhead City alone, a solitary figure amidst a divided community. Some neighbors, in a display of empathy, supported him, bringing casseroles and offering what comfort they could. Others, however, whispered their dark suspicions when he walked past. Life, in its strange, relentless way, moved forward. Bob continued his desert trips, posting unsettling photos on social media of the very same stark landscapes he and Barbara used to explore together. Some people found this touching, a poignant testament to shared memories. Others found it deeply, profoundly disturbing.
Meanwhile, Barbara's family in far-off Hong Kong, unwilling to accept the unanswered questions, hired a private investigator. They simply could not accept that their beloved sister had simply vanished without a trace. They desperately needed answers. The Barbara Thomas case languished in a filing cabinet, just one among dozens of other cold cases. COVID-19 had, tragically, shut down many active investigations. It seemed as though Barbara would forever remain another haunting desert mystery, an enigma swallowed by the sands of time. But technology, relentlessly, was advancing. Ground-penetrating radar had become far more sophisticated. Satellite imagery analysis could now meticulously review historical photos with incredible, almost microscopic detail. Yet all their cutting-edge discoveries led only to another frustrating dead end.
On November 27, 2020, the shroud of mystery surrounding Barbara Thomas finally, chillingly came to an end. According to the San Bernardino County Sheriff Coroner's Division, 2 hikers made a grim discovery in the desert near Essex, California. It was Barbara. Her remains were found in the harsh, empty wilderness more than a year after she had so inexplicably vanished in July 2019.
Supervisor Jeff Lewison of the Sheriff Coroner's Division confirmed the recovery that same day. The desert's relentless, dry heat had, in an eerie twist of fate, preserved her remains in a way that shocked even the most experienced investigators. What had begun as a leisurely summer hike had culminated in one of the Mojave's most haunting, unresolved cases. Dental records unequivocally confirmed what everyone had already grimly suspected. After 18 long, agonizing months, Barbara had been found.
There was no definitive explanation, no clear, undeniable sign of whether Barbara's death was purely accidental or something far more unsettling, something sinister. Even highly experienced desert guides remained deeply skeptical. As one sagely noted, seasoned hikers don't just collapse in 5 minutes. Those words echo a haunting, persistent question. What truly transpired in that brief, critical window after Barbara stepped ahead on that sun-scorched trail? Did the desert's overwhelming power claim her in an instant? Did she wander tragically off course, disoriented and unseen, lost to the vast, indifferent landscape?
Or is there a darker, more malevolent truth that will forever hide within those empty miles of sand and rock?
The Mojave Desert stretches across an immense 47,877 square miles, an ocean of dust, profound silence, and untold secrets. It finally relinquished Barbara's location, but her final, desperate moments, those remain forever buried in the shifting sands of time. And now, the chilling question lingers. Was Barbara's death a tragic, cruel accident? Or is there something more sinister lurking beneath the desert's heavy silence? What do you believe happened in those final 5 minutes? Drop your theories in the comments below, because your perspective might just uncover what others have missed. The answers may be out there, but only if we keep relentlessly asking the questions.
Thanks for watching. We'll uncover the next mystery together in the next Vanished Story.